Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the GenAI Summit podcast. This is the official podcast series of the GenAI Summit, and we are here to bring you the brightest minds and the latest developments in generative AI. I'm your host, Yorgos Nikoletakis. You can call me George. I'm the CEO of 100 Mentors, and today I'm excited to be joined by Manos Koukoumidis, the CEO of Oumi. Welcome to the show, Mano.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Yorgos.
It's our pleasure. Let me first share a couple of things for housekeeping. There are four podcast sections. The first one is about the value of Oumi. What is that Manos and his team do? The second is about inspiration. You will figure out. Third, my favorite, is about tactical learning, from tools and methodologies to skills and strategy. And the last part is about Europe's GenAI ecosystem and the fourth GenAI Summit in a few months. So, Manos, you will tell us lots about Oumi yourself, and we are very eager to learn how things are unfolding in your team. But as I know you from the organizing team of the GenAI Summit, I know that you don't speak much about yourself. So I will do a short intro before I make some questions later. Manos is a former engineer researcher at Google and Meta, Facebook. Manos also holds a PhD from MIT. And in the words of one of your investors, the exceptional technical leadership of CEO Manos Koukoumidis first drew us to Oumi. As the former leader who bootstrapped and led the Google Cloud's Palm efforts and then Gemini's alignment and safety, Manos brings deep expertise in coordinating large-scale AI teams and infrastructure development. So he has assembled an impressive team of engineers from Google, Apple, Snap, Meta, and other companies to pursue this mission with him. Very impressive, Mano. So first question, what is Oumi? What is the problem that you solve?
So Oumi is an end-to-end platform for the development of foundation models. You could use it to develop something like DeepSeek end-to-end, from the pre-training, the post-training, the evaluation, everything that you need, data curation, or work with any of the existing open models, the DeepSeek, Phi, Llama, any of the major ones right now, to adapt them to your domain and needs. Let's say you want to build a healthcare, a fintech-specific model, or adapt it for agentic scenario summarization. It's the only one platform that is end-to-end. And again, you can go all the way from the data synthesis, curation, to training, all the different pre-training, post-training, RL approaches, to evaluation, end-to-end. It's a fully open source library, so Apache 2, so it's very easy and accessible for anyone to use.
Perfect. And pretty much we get some idea about how this works if we have been engaged in any open source community. But how do you solve this problem? What would you say is the main ways that you offer to your users and then to your clients? We will explore also use cases if you wish.
Yeah, definitely. So when talking with many, both enterprises but also researchers in academia, what they were telling us is that it has become a lot harder for us to do this type of research or development if you are in enterprise. It's very complex to all these technologies. Evaluating GenAI models is hard, even if both in terms of the inherent difficulty, but even typically if you want to evaluate them holistically, you have to, install, how many different packages to do all the different evaluations that you need. Training is also hard. We had researchers in some of the most notable academics in the US tell us that, none of my students have done distributed training. All these things is hard. And for them to put together all the pieces they need to do this type of work, it takes a lot of effort. And sometimes, they may do it for one model, but then if you want to switch from one model to the next, let's say Phi to Quen, it's a lot of work to change the tokenization, the training, all the different inference steps for evaluation. And our thinking was that it shouldn't be so hard to do this type of research or development work. You can kind of remove all the friction points and make sure you can go again all the way from the data synthesis, curation, to training, to evaluation, all the different training approaches. Evaluation in a much more seamless way. Also transition from small models to large models very easily. Why can't you just say, I want to move from the Llama 8B to the Llama 405B and just change the value in the configuration file and then distribute the training, everything else is taken care of for you, assuming you have enough GPUs. And why, again, when you move from one model to the next, why should it take you all this time to adapt and change your pipeline? It should be just changing a line in the configuration file. Anyway, and unsurprisingly, I would say, these were the common needs and problems that both people in enterprise and in academia were facing. And so, okay, there's definitely a need to provide and build such a solution. And this is for what we do for fully open source. And then for the enterprise offering, our thesis is that, we should have a very strong open source offering. We say, kind of like equivalent of Linux, like the Linux of AI. And then on top of that, many companies, including Oumi, can go and build specialized solutions on top that you can offer as an enterprise offering with some commercial license. But yeah, our key thesis is that at least the core foundation, anything that you need to develop foundation models, the platform itself, and the models themselves should be fully open. It should be a utility because it's something that we use across any technology, many sciences, not just the tech industry. And then on top of that, again, develop the commercial offerings, or as we say, build the Red Hat of AI on top. And so we start building the Linux and then slowly building the Red Hat as well.
Super interesting. You essentially combine a very mission-oriented offering for free to an open source to academia and users like myself, like anybody who is a builder. But you charge the enterprises. Is there a range that we can ask for? We have many enterprises in our audiences. In our audience, we have decision makers. They would love to learn how you package what you do and whether this is a combination of the models that somebody can find on Oumi, but also services about how they can implement and deploy them and adjust them to their own needs.
Yeah, that's a great question, Yorgos. So the as I mentioned before, the core foundation, the platform itself that we launched 7-8 weeks ago, is fully open source, Apache 2, free for anyone to use. And somebody was asking me recently, and I realized I didn't perhaps elaborate on this enough. I was like, okay, if you do this in open source, then what's in for you? Why are you doing this? I mean, yes, definitely. We have a mission. We're a public benefit corporation, for profit, but public benefit. We have a very strong mission. We think that's good for humanity, for everybody. But at the same time, it's somewhat self-serving as well, because our thesis is that unless there's a strong Linux, companies like Oumi cannot thrive. If there's not a strong foundation, open source foundation, and we all help make it better, then open source won't thrive. And if open source don't thrive, then no company is going to be willing to invest in open source to go to production, which means also our enterprise offerings would not make any sense. But anyway, luckily, the good news is that the way things have been going lately, with all the launches from Llama 3 to DeepSeek, has become increasingly clear that actually open models are doing really well and thriving. And many customers are realizing, hey, I can get open models, customize them to my needs. I can get better quality than the black box offered by OpenAI or Gemini or Anthropic. At the same time, with all the benefits of open source, I can choose where I deploy, meaning better privacy, better security, full flexibility and ownership. So, but anyway, that's something that, again, many enterprises are starting to realize. And that's what our thesis was over a year ago, that's the direction that the market is going to follow. Increasingly, more and more enterprises, they will realize that moving from closed models to open models is a better alternative for them. So we want to build a platform that will help them. And now, also the platform will help everybody in the community. And now going to the enterprise offerings. What we help enterprises is that you could almost imagine the same services model that Red Hat that says, you know what, you want to develop your own foundation model for your domain, or just take any existing open model and customize to your domain and task. We can help you through all these steps. If you need the support, or if you need us to develop that model for you as you upskill and you become better at this, we can help you develop that model end to end for you, and any part of the development process that you need. At the same time, especially given that you're building on the Oumi platform, there's specific add-ons that we can provide. For example, we're building add-ons for things that help enterprises deploy those systems reliably in production. What I mean by this, one of the most common obstacles that we hear enterprises have is having foundation models that they can trust, that they are not hallucinating. They're not going off the rails. They're not saying unsafe things. And these are areas where, while there are some offerings out there right now, we know, and we believe, and actually we already know from the work we have already done, that you can do better because enterprises need better solutions. And these are add-ons that we plan to offer for enterprises. So again, the thesis is we want a very strong Linux of AI, very strong foundation, fully open source, the whole community advances it. And then on top of it, we can help any enterprise that need the support in terms of services, how they can build those solutions, and specific add-ons, especially around reliability that we're building.
That's super explanatory and helpful for the companies that are in our community. And I think there will be a lot reaching out to you. That's excellent. And I will ask you more about how we are way past the era of just one model implemented in each company. We have partners as well and clients that have been using 4 or 5 different models, and many of them from the open source community during the last, I would say, 3-4 months. It's very obvious, and it's a stage of the maturity of the building process for ourselves. We started with closed models, but as we move forward, we use more and more what is in the open source community. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, and I think that it's becoming the mainstream. Let's move to the second part. The second part is about inspiration, and I'm saying that because we are making a distinct category because we also have more than 80,000 students, school students who are a part of the Tipping Point program in Greece, and we do the mentoring. We offer the mentoring platform for them. The Tipping Point in Education is an amazing organization, and I think this part is very important to them, but to all of us as well, because we are always looking for role models. And the first question, actually, I would like to hear from you again, the mission and the vision of Oumi, before I ask you about your early beginnings. How do you envision Oumi 5 years from now? And I know this is kind of a very American question, but I would love to know.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we say that our mission is to make AI truly open. To be more clear, is frontier AI, because you could argue the classic AI is still open, but it's a lot of tools, easy, accessible to anyone. So I would like to imagine that in 5 years, that we have exited the 2+ dark years that we had recently of most enterprises thinking that the only way they can get access to the best frontier AI is to go and use a closed model. That open source, as it was until a couple of years ago, still becomes the most viable option, the most accessible option, and ideally that this is enabled through a platform like Oumi. I would love that to be Oumi, the platform that enables this. As I tell people, if we fail, I really hope that somebody else with the same strategy succeeds, because something like that needs to exist. I mean, we need to make sure open source AI more accessible. So anyway, but yeah, I really hope that we are the ones that enable this. That would be really great. Hopefully. But anyway, that was the core mission and idea, that we want frontier AI to be truly open and accessible, and also advance collectively, to enable not only enterprise to consume AI, but also researchers and everybody else to collectively contribute in making it better. And from the enterprise side of things, I really hope that Oumi grows to become a very successful company. I can already see, since we launched the last 7-8 weeks, some of the biggest US enterprises reaching out, say, you know what, we need exactly what you're building.
Nice.
And especially after the last couple of months, or especially after DeepSeek came out, we realized that we should be moving to open models. It's actually surprising how much of an impact DeepSeek made. So far things are looking very good, and hopefully they continue to be like that.
And that's actually great. I love that. I see the enthusiasm, and there is so much in front of you guys. Another question that is very typical for this part, and that comes from our students, is what experiences led you to co-found Oumi, you and your team? I would love to know. Can you take us back to the early days where your time at Google, maybe Meta, or even MIT, and what experiences shaped your perspective on AI, and how did these experiences lead you to open source and Oumi?
Yeah. So I didn't. When I was starting my PhD, I didn't know much about AI. I took an AI course in National Technical University of Athens, but yeah, it was mostly the alpha beta pruning and search exploration algorithms. Nothing of around neural networks and things like that. But when I was starting my PhD, I was realizing that there's all these smartphones. The first iPhone had come out, and one day everybody's going to have a device like this. There's all these sensors, all this data. We need to do something with it, and that's how I ended up working with AI. Yeah, none of my advisors was AI was not really their thing, but I was like, okay, I think this is going to be a very successful, very useful tool. I need to get more into AI. And then when I moved to Microsoft, I was working with NLP pretty much in all the products and everything that I built. And I don't know, just for the record, I was building something like ChatGPT in 2016 at Microsoft. Just that we had no transformers, we're using LSTMs. Actually, myself, I had built what we call RAG. So, anyway, now going a little back into the PhD years, I think, if anything, the thing that I got from my PhD more than anything was, because I spent officially the first 3 years at Princeton, last 2 at MIT, was that I would say mostly perhaps have the confidence to ask the right questions and pursue the solutions, no matter how hard. And I would argue perhaps even the most important was asking the right questions, because if anything, from the PhD, less about the answers, was about having the kind of the confidence or the thinking to challenge the status quo and say, what, are things really the way they should be, or is there a better way to do things? Because that's also what my line of thinking when I left Google to start Oumi. You would hear people like Sam Altman saying it's totally hopeless to compete with us, pretty much making you feel that,
I remember
that's the future, kneel to our feet, pay us tribute, use our AI, and give us a ton of money for it. And increasingly, I started questioning, okay, philosophically, that's a bad outcome for humanity, right? To put our biggest invention that science is and everything needs in a black box. And then I started again questioning this. I said, okay, is it really the future? I was like, no, that's not really the future, because if you look what happened with most other complex technologies, operating systems, Linux versus Unix, PostgreSQL versus Oracle, quite often, in many of these cases, open source technologies thrive. Then AI should be no different, because if anything, as a technology, especially now to go a little bit deeper, perhaps not so much for pre-training, but especially for post-training, where most of the innovation is, it's something that can be very easily advanced by an open community if you give it the right tools. If you give it a platform...
It sounds like it pissed you off to hear Sam Altman saying that, right? And I'm thinking that, sometimes, this is one of the greatest motivations. Like, I remember I took it personally. Michael Jordan in the Netflix series, whenever he wanted some real motivation, he was inventing some imaginary opponent. But here, you have somebody very significant personality in AI telling you that that's the only way, man.
Absolutely, Euros. And if you think about it, I don't know if I would say it was arrogant, but it was definitely self-serving. And it was self-serving in a way that is doing a huge service to humanity. If you tell them, I'm going to take the biggest invention yet, perhaps, and put in a black box, and you guys just see to this, that's your future. I think it's just something very bad to do to humanity and everybody. So, just yield, right? Just use my AI. That's the future. For something that's so important.
I will ask you a few questions later about this movement towards open source. But let me finish this part for the students, because before we get more technical as well and more tactical. So the last question I have on that is, first of all, where did you grow up? A brief, sorry for we're getting a bit personal here. And then how did you meet your co-founders? What's the story? And maybe who are your role models? I will ask later. I will break down the question. So where did you grow up? And then tell us about your teammates.
Yeah, I grew up in Athens, in Neo-Heraklion, where I spent perhaps the first 20-something years. And most of the time when I was still in undergrad in Greece. And, you can imagine, I was mostly a good student. I would say mostly because there's some years where I decided I didn't want to study too hard. I was only good in math and physics. getting bottom grades in history and everything else, but because overall I was doing very well. You could imagine typical parents, especially mothers, saying you should become a doctor or a lawyer. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to do anything of that. I want to become an electrical engineer like my father, because I would also see him tampering with stuff. I would help him fix things. I would always take device, try to break them apart, and that's why I went to the electrical and computer engineering school. It was a great school in Athens, mostly for the electrical engineering, and then somehow by accident, you could say, I got into computer engineering. And after taking my first Pascal class and then my first C class, I ended up starting the second year to be a teaching assistant at the computer labs for all the subsequent years. And I was like, you know what, actually, I really like computer programming. And the plan was to become an electrical engineer, but I ended up to be a computer engineer.
And let's get towards the latest years. So you meet your co-founders or your teammates when? I'm slightly slowly getting towards the third part of this podcast interview, tactical learning. So we have lots of builders and founders in our audience. So many young people, you're building their vision. So what's your advice on finding their teammates? Build first and then find a team. How did you find your own teammates?
Yeah. So I had the benefit of being, doing graduate studies in the US. I mean, doing undergrad, postgraduate studies, then working in different companies. So in many ways, I had met a lot of great people throughout the years. And if anything, I would say, when you meet someone who is great, definitely maintain that relationship, because who knows, maybe after 5 years, 10 years, you may cross paths again, especially if you're intentional about it. That was the case with one of my co-founders, Osama, where we worked together, 9 years ago, when we were at Microsoft. And we maintained the relationship. At some point, I wrote a referral for him for some position he wanted to get. Once or twice, I tried to hire him, but I failed because some other company was giving him a better offer than I was giving him. It was not my fault. Apple gave him a better offer than Google, for example.
Google, okay.
But, it was through maintaining that connection that when I reached out to him, said, hey, I'm thinking of starting a startup on this topic. And actually, as he admitted, he's like, you know what, I was working with you, but I wasn't convinced I want to leave Apple and do a startup. So I came just to talk with you. And by the end of the meeting, he was telling me, actually, that's cool. We should do this. So anyway, that's why, the rest of the co-founders were people that we worked together at Google. And I would say this, if you do right by people, if you, I was their manager directly or indirectly, if you treat people well, then they want to work with you again. And that's why many people, they also happen to be leaving Google at the same time. And that's how we came together to build Oumi together. And it's a huge privilege, to be able to work with all these people that you really like and you've been wanting to work again for years.
So you were the one who just built the message and the vision, and you shared it with people that you trusted each other. And
to a great extent,
first
yes,
is always to your teammates, right?
Exactly, to a great extent, yes. But that vision and strategy has definitely been refined and improved with a lot of feedback and help with everybody else.
Totally. And how do you structure your team? I mean, first of all, what are your big product decisions right now? How do you build your product roadmap? I mean, since there is no single off-the-shelf product, I mean, you tell me whether I'm wrong here, but since there are so many things that you can do, I mean, the scope of Oumi is pretty broad. How do you prioritize product and project decisions?
So far, since we're focusing most on the open source side of things, we had a lot of input from, actually, I say both enterprises, but also people in academia, and also from our own experience developing foundation models and specializing in specific problems and tasks, what the gaps were and what our ideal solution would look like, because we could be users ourselves. Mm-hmm. But now, as we're moving to the second phase of the company of starting to build more and more of the enterprise offerings, that's where we're trying to talk even more to more such enterprises, understand what's their needs. And also that's why also we're hiring somebody to help us lead product. Somebody told me once at Google that they're now leading search, vision, natural language vision and search products across all of Azure. He told me, I could hire you as a product manager. I was like, okay, I'll take that as a compliment, but I know that I would be okay, but I wouldn't be a great product manager. So that's why we're hiring somebody that would be a lot better than me.
Are you all technical? Do you have any business people in the team right now?
We have none right now, but we have some amazing advisors. We have both our board member, the voting one, and the observer. They both used to be VPs or chief of product officers at large enterprise like Meta or startups. So they have provided a lot of help. And we have also 2 advisors that one of them is leading product across natural language vision search at Azure, the other one at scale. So I've been getting a lot of support and help, but I think we're at the point where we could use somebody that is full-time and dedicated.
No, I see that, but it looks like you are, the first thing that you do better than many other interviewees and other people that we know is that you attract amazing talent either within the team or as advisors. And also, I think you are one of the few, let's say, startups that you have such amazing collaborations with universities. Can you talk about why this is important to you and whether other startups should do that if they are not truly like scientific? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think quite often some connections with academia would help, especially, so you can understand often what is the latest and so on. For Oumi, my thesis was from the very beginning that the best way to make this succeed, because we want to succeed not just building the Red Hat, right? We had to build first the Linux of AI, is that you need a strong community. And as opposed to, just having it be built by a small group of people and say, we are the ones who build it, I would rather it be a collaborative effort, a community effort. That's why from the very beginning we said, we don't want this to be just a Oumi, like a company of 10 people effort. We want to start this with the support, the help of all these different academics. I would argue as many as possible, and have this be a joint effort. And it's okay, if more of these people get some share of the company, right? I'm okay with this because I think the best chance of success is if you make this be a community effort. And that's why we started again with all this help, because we realized that we're going after something that is not easy, especially a year ago, it looked a lot harder than what it looks now. And we could use all the support we can get. And there was a lot of academics that were very interested. We had, again, some of the best academics telling us that, what you're saying, what you're building, it's a bold, actually that's how one of them described it, it's a bold but much needed initiative. So, start it and
So, sorry, I interrupted you, but go ahead and name
that was all.
Universities that you work with, because you've been. I'm the one saying about the names, dropping names here, but I think you can share a bit more about what universities you collaborate with, who are the researchers behind.
Yeah, it's a very long list, and now I'm sorry I won't be able to memorize all of them. But pretty much, many universities that come to mind, including Princeton and MIT, where I was, Stanford, Berkeley, Georgia Tech, NYU, University of Washington, University of Illinois. I'm missing quite a few.
Enough.
I'm pretty sure.
I get of them, but lots of people are not familiar with Oumi, and I think this increases the reliability of what you do. You have this amazing community. So another interesting thing, and you are part of this movement, I would say trend, is that open source demands a different approach to like development and community building. You raised that issue, and distribution. So we have, we were talking to some of the guys from Lovable, which is like the hottest startup right now in Europe, the fastest growing one. And those guys also started with this open source project, Engineer GPT, if you are familiar, which was like the most popular project on GitHub at a certain point. And they started like that. And then, they were telling us that then, you have the reliability of the open source, the credits from the community, and you don't try to convince anybody. I mean, and the first question is that we get a lot from students, but also from business people. Why to open your models, let's say? And I mean, are you not afraid of like the risk that somebody takes it and makes it better, packages it better? And the other one is, do you have any best practices for founders that are thinking of the open source path? Is this for everybody?
Yeah. Open source is definitely harder. And you can imagine, I've had quite a few VCs or other people tell me, building an open source business is harder typically than building any other one. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of benefits, right? If you unlock this, you get the success, you can get a very strong community building something that, is way more powerful than anything else. Because as I tell people, I think if you want to build something that becomes the fabric of innovation that is yet to come, it should be open source. Because if it's closed source, usually after 10, 20 years, whatever you build dies and nobody else gets to almost benefit or build upon it. Whereas if open source, that thing can live on. I mean, you think about Linux, right? When it was invented, how many things are still being built on top of it compared to Windows NT kernel, for example. So that's why, it can be very, I'll say, intoxicating or rewarding to contribute things to open source, but it definitely makes building a business on top of it a lot harder. However, for the case of Oumi, we felt that it's the only way in which it can be, because as I mentioned before, the best chance of success for both Oumi and all the other companies that rely on open source is that open source thrives. Because if there's no good open source solution, then people won't use open source. But as I was mentioning before, the improvement came very fast because Llama 3 continues to get better. Then there was DeepSeek. But as I mentioned before, I think there is still a huge opportunity to help the community to build on top of the Llamas and the DeepSeeks and all these models and make them even better. And that's why we built Oumi. So even though you have Llama and DeepSeek, you still need the tools that will help everybody in the community to make them even better and go beyond that. So anyway, and because again, we felt that the best way to compete with OpenAI and Google and everybody else is that if you work with the community, they may have more GPUs, but you can have orders of magnitude bigger community. And especially for post-training, the community can be much more important asset than the number of GPUs that you have.
Amazing.
So anyway, that's why it was the best strategy to win this. And also at the same time, align what is best for humanity and for all of us. That's just how it needs to be. But yeah, it's definitely hard to monetize. Yeah.
No. So, sorry for interrupting, but to me, it's also like the best attraction for talent, factor being open and having the community contributing, and then you essentially, bond with people that you don't know personally, but you share the same mission. So this builds amazing teams. And I just want to share that I was stunned by what this CEO of DeepSeek said, that what we lack in innovation is certainly not capital. He said, I have it here, but rather confidence and the ability to effectively organize high density talent to drive meaningful innovation. And that really struck me, because it's also the case for Greece, where we come from, where we think that we should just build big infra, which is something that we need to do, but the scarce, the scarce material out there is talent, and I think you also are speaking about this.
Exactly, that's what I tell people, especially when it goes to the post-training and many other innovations. You can do them at small scale with only a handful, lower-end GPUs. Doesn't need to be the latest and greatest. And there's still, with those tools, the community can make huge impact that then somebody else can take and scale up.
Back to tactical, and so that we get to the last part of this interview. Do you use any of the new developer tools yourself or your team? I'm getting as practical as it can be. Like, how do you operate yourself as as a builder? How is the team working so that you make it as lean as possible?
Yeah. So we're definitely using some of the coding copilots like GitHub Copilot.
Uh-huh.
Although not all team members use it because they find it if they're doing something new, something they don't know very well, it's really helpful. But if they're really deep experts, they can still write better code than using those tools. But if, especially if they're doing something they don't know really well, then it's huge acceleration.
Sure.
And I would say mostly tools for everyday use that I use. I use through u.com, but through that you can consume different, GPT, Claude, and other models
Okay.
for specific scenarios. But there's quite a few of them. But yeah, you can imagine for me if I want to rewrite some text, improve it, have an improved search experience opposed to using Google. Yeah.
That's excellent. And I mean, I here in SF, I live the hype of Cursor, Windsurf, and
Yes.
for like lower code, people or no code people. I mean, they all use Bolt V0, and they have put it in their lives. But I guess in your case, it's not about like delivering features as fast as possible. It's a kind of different nature of product.
Exactly. It's like deep infrastructure where
Yeah.
even the code quality and everything matters a lot because we're building a developer tool, something that other developers will take, reuse, extend, make it better. Yeah. I mean, again, trust me, we still may have some generated code in our code base, but it's still heavily human curated after that.
Perfect. And I have some questions about monetization, but I think you answered them like in the very beginning. So that's not the time to ask that. And let's go towards some other questions about the future of GenAI and in Europe community building. So first of all, where do you see the GenAI space in the next 2-3 years? You spoke a bit about your own vision. Do you think that we will see something new in the GenAI Summit in 2025 or in the Summit of 2026 that we haven't thought of? Besides, I mean, open source is the one increasing trend, let's say. Anything else that you would like to highlight and we should keep our eyes onto?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say beyond anything that that may seem already very apparent to many people. Yeah, we have more agents, more automation, more this, more that. But yes, I mentioned the main one, at least that I'm focusing, is open source. I do think there was a signs of a wave coming a year ago, less clear now, definitely a much bigger wave. Now beyond that, I don't know. I don't have anything that comes to mind. I think, anyway, if anything, I would say again that I felt the gaps between open and closed modes is going to be becoming so much smaller, and
So much smaller. Yeah.
open source innovation is going to be, the open source ecosystem is going to be becoming so much better than I think it's going to be closed mode is going to be less and less of a good option for many people. But yeah, in terms of, I don't know, any all new, all together, I don't know.
I love that you're putting a thought onto that to satisfy that. You don't need to. I mean, you are the best person in the world to describe or to share.
Maybe about AGI, I wouldn't say I believe that AGI will be coming in 2 years. I think here's the thing: we're constantly impressed by all the things that are happening, but I think we still have quite a bit to go. But yeah, it will be more code be generated by machines compared to humans. Yeah, very likely for many of these applications, more and more.
And what about we see a lot of, I mean, one of those kind of DeepSeek moments was this agent called Manos, which essentially is a wrapper of a closed source model. Do you have such projects like wrappers on
We don't.
And wrapper doesn't mean it's not good, right? I mean, what's your take on that?
No, yeah, we don't. I had somebody that tried, said, okay, maybe it's not as impressive as the hype. I haven't traced it, so I cannot. I'm not there I cannot criticize it. But no, I agree with you. Any such wrappers, if they at the end they end up building a very worthwhile experience for the rest of us, sure, we'll take it. Innovation shouldn't be just inventing the new transformer. But yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of promise with all these different agentic scenarios. If anything, perhaps that may sound a little bit contrarian right now. I would argue that there's been a little too much infatuation about agents, perhaps.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of useful scenarios for agents. Actually, okay, let me take it back. There's a lot of useful scenarios for agents, a lot of opportunities for things that people can do. But quite often when I talk to some companies, they tell me, you know what, okay, I'm doing all this automation, but then there's this one model that I'm heavily relying on that doesn't work well. I'm like, okay, then besides the agents, which again, I'll take it back what I said because it could be misleading. Besides think of it as an agent system, which is
Yeah.
huge automation opportunity for you, maybe you should go back and think how you can go improve that model, how you can train it with your own data. So that's why I think there's been a lot of attention has moved away from how can I make the core AI that I'm using better? And then sure, then put that into some automation because it's a huge opportunity for agent systems. But at the same time, I think some people have forgotten. I was talking to a company recently about how can I improve that model that is at the core of my agent scenario and make it better, and find ways to make that better as opposed to just building multi-agents and things like that.
We are offering some courses, the GenAI Summit, which are, and I think the most essential skill right now is to be able to decide what's useful to you at the moment based on your needs and what you want to build. And most of the people have some problem in their minds, but they don't really, they haven't structured a well-defined solution, and we cannot even distinguish, within the spectrum between automation and autonomy, where we stand. And that's the big lesson that we take when we speak with corporations as well. And they tell us about agents, but
hopefully Yorgos, that may resonate with you, but I do think that for quite some time now and for quite some time to come, that human in the loop scenarios may be the most promising.
we agree.
And that's why I said before, use agents, think about how you can make them better, how you can train those models to become even better. But because they're not fully there yet, many scenarios are very mission critical. I think there's a good place also for humans to be in the loop.
And you speak about scenarios where the human intervenes for reinforcement learning, or they intervene to, let's say, to say that we can move forward with what the agent decided. Is this only a matter of annotation, or you see it as in the day-to-day operations of a company?
I was referring mostly to the latter, definitely for RL scenarios. Yeah, you could definitely say that, human preferences and things like that. But I was referring mostly to the second one, where once you have trained or built these models, I think it's very useful in many scenarios to have humans in the loop that you bring in, perhaps if not always, at least selectively. I think we're going to still need them for many of those scenarios. And you may say, okay, now this scenario is getting better. But then if you start thinking as a more complex agent that takes multiple steps, still, there may be one of the steps that the human needs to intervene. As the agent may be getting better on individual steps, maybe, across some of them, as you build more and more complex automation, you may still need a human in the loop. I think, again, things are going to be getting obviously better and better. But I think if many enterprises are thinking that, I'm going to take this and it's going to fully automate this, everything 100%, they may find themselves realizing that we're not just there yet.
Yeah.
And the most reasonable path is to start with some human in the loop and then progress and make it slowly better and better and better.
Yeah, this is what we do with our new product with the Wiser work, the meeting.
I know, and I fully believe that's the way to go. That's why I want to highlight.
Yeah, it's like AI suggests essentially, and humans decide or how to move forward so that AI can continue helping us out. So towards the last questions of our podcast, and thank you so much for your time, Mano. I would like to ask you on that side that we are having this. We are conducting the summit in Athens, Greece. It's a small country. We had the DeepSeek moment that shows us that it's not only the big players with the thousands GPUs and billions to train a model that can, that can deliver breakthroughs. And one of the questions is, are you intending to like hire in such countries? Do you want to build some talent pools in countries like Greece? What's your thought process? Or you are all remote and I mean, GitHub is the source and it's all virtual. How do you
Yeah.
work and how do you intend to attract talent?
Yeah, I do think that it's good for people at least every now and then to come into an office, meet each other, connect. So currently we have two offices, one in Seattle, one in the Bay Area, in Palo Alto, at least for now, although we may move very soon. And we're already looking into building an office in Greece. It was actually, sorry, for many years, my hope that if I ever build a startup to build a hub also in Greece. Because I think, as you said, there's amazing talent there. And I would love to give some more opportunities and expose them also to US startups in Greece. So yeah, that's the current plan. So yeah, we're actively hiring in Greece as well.
Okay, noted, and we will spread the word. And a last question is, what's the one piece of advice you would like to give to any generative AI builders, either founders or employees, builders within their companies, until you meet them at the summit in November?
Yeah, great question. So perhaps, the one lasting message I would leave is, if you really consider your company or what you're building, that AI is a key part, and you want to differentiate, you want to get the best results, you want to do the best everything, don't stay in the shallow waters of just tuning a prompt behind a closed source API. But try to get more into open source again, especially something what we build with Oumi. It's not hard to use. It's almost as easy as the closed source models and their APIs. But then you can start flexing your AI muscles and getting deeper and deeper and getting better and better, because you're gonna need that flexibility and control to really differentiate.
That's an
Because your
excellent.
competitors likely can play with prompts as well. But if you have your own data, your own data troves and other capabilities, you should really be flexing your AI muscles with more flexible technologies like open source.
Perfect ending and super encouraging. We always ask, what's one question you would like me to ask our next guest? So this is how we end this interview. I would love to listen to what question is an exciting one for you.
Why are they still using closed source AI and they haven't moved to open source?
Perfect. Mano, thank you so much. Amazing to have you here. And you've been super supportive of the organizing team of the Generative AI Summit as well. We thank you for that as well. And we wish you the best, and let us know whether there is something that we can do for you. I mean, the community behind the summit, it's 16,000 people, virtual, 4,000 to 5,000 live attendees. It's a strong community and it's very mission oriented about generative AI. How can we help you?
Thank you very much, Yorgo, for asking this. As I tell everyone, besides the enterprise side of Oumi, the most important one, even if the enterprise side doesn't go well, is I really hope that the open source really thrives. I think actually I'm very hopeful for the enterprise as well. But the open source that thrives, that's very important. The best way to make successful is the more people that we work together on this. So anything from showing the support in GitHub with a star, or especially with contributions, that would really help. Because again, the best way to make open source AI better is if we all work together as a community. So yeah, we strongly encourage anyone to support this any way they can. I feel very strongly it's a very important mission. It's very important.
Besides your website, of course, we will put your GitHub link, and
Yes.
we will leave the rest to our audience. Thank you, Manos. Have a good one, and we'll speak soon in person as well.
Thank you, Manos. I was looking forward to it.
It was a pleasure. Bye.